The reviewer needs to have the background or the basis, the foundation that the finding from the investigation was correct. There should be a presumption that the finding was correct. That same principle actually applies in the criminal appeals process as well, where they presume the conviction was proper. So put that in your policy. That is important. You need to put that in your policy, not only for the reviewer, but so that the parties understand. Again, this isn't a second opinion. They need to understand the investigation is done. The investigation is final. If there was a problem with it, this process is meant to fix it. But you have to show that there was a problem. We are presuming, we are trusting that our investigator did the right thing. That's important. If you're providing the proper training and support to your investigator, it's very important that you then trust and support your investigator in their finding and their work. If you are going to question that and not presume, you're not going to keep an investigator. An investigator can't work in an environment where everyone believes that they did it wrong. It's hard enough when the parties are angry with the investigator. So as an investigator, it's difficult. You always have someone mad at you constantly. You need to be able to rely on your supervisor, your chain of command, to trust you and to support you. So while one side is always mad at you, always angry, always calling you names, always arguing with what you've done, you need to know that your organization has your back. And if you don't, once the investigator loses the trust in their supervisor, their administrator, it's almost impossible to continue working there. It's too much to have both sides attacking you. As part of your investigation, you already have safeguards in place. You have a policy, you have a process. If it's followed consistently by a trained investigator, you should very comfortably be able to say, we believe, we support this finding. If you can show a mistake, we want to fix it. And as an investigator, if I screw up, if I make a mistake, I want it fixed. I'm doing this to get it right. I'm doing this to provide justice. So if I'm human, as the investigator, you're human. So you shouldn't be so prideful about your decision that you are unable to admit that you've made a mistake. But there needs to be a presumption that you did it right, and they actually need to prove that you make a mistake. If I'm in a situation where someone proves that I screwed up, then I'm going to own it and fix it, because that's my reputation. And I want the reputation that I do it right, but if I happen to make a mistake, I'm willing to admit it and fix it. That's important to me personally, but also professionally as an investigator with my professional integrity. So the burden of proving that a mistake was made rests on the appealing party. And that is in line with the criminal appeals process as well. The organization is presuming the finding is correct. So if the appealing party wants to claim that there's a mistake, the burden is upon that person to prove it. And again, all of this needs to be outlined and needs to be understood. You can put this in a very succinct form or document that you provide them so they understand that they can't just throw an argument. They actually have to prove it. They have to back up what they're claiming. Because the reviewer is not doing a new investigation. The reviewer is utilizing the case file, the notes, the documents, the reports in the case file, which the reviewer is presuming is correct. So the appealing party has to point them in the right direction and show, in this document, in this exhibit, you need to look at this paragraph, there's a mistake here, and that mistake changed the outcome. So the reviewer's job is to decide if the appeal that is submitted, if that document proves to the specified standard of evidence that the finding was incorrect based on whatever reason they are appealing, their basis for appeal. So the people submitting these appeals, your employees, they're not lawyers. They're not going to submit a legal brief. Often they try to, so they will try to prepare a document that they believe sounds like a legal brief or sounds like what a lawyer would submit. But you have to recognize that. You have to give that to them. Your expectation shouldn't be for a legal brief because they're not lawyers. They can still submit a convincing, logical, reasonable argument without it being a fancy formatted legal brief. Many will also consult with an attorney and have an attorney help them write up the appeal. And if that's what they do, that's fine. That's their decision. If they want to do that, they can. But recognize the audience or the person you're working with or dealing with, and that should be your expectation. So you still have clear rules of what they need to prove and what they need to include in the document, but be realistic in how that's going to look and read.